States' rights is stupid. There. Did that piss you off? Do I have a lot of angry, neo-isolationist dipshits all in a lather? Good. See, speaking in any kind of political context is very much like trying to feed a baby. Doesn't matter how you get them to open their mouth, what's important is it's open so you can get the food in there. And given this particular subject matter, a fussy, gurgling infant is an extremely apt metaphor. Anyway, states' rights is one of those things that Americans of many political adherences tend to hold sacred, mostly because it's an old idea, and Americans have a hard time accepting that ideas can actually become obsolete. Just look how hard we're working to pretend that we still have a viable manufacturing and agricultural sector. This is compounded by the fact that many politicians, mostly Republicans, but by no means exclusively, understand that the phrase was popularized as a bullshit self-justification for pro-slavery secessionists during the Civil War, and thusly it can be used as a wink-wink, nudge-nudge way for them to say, "Don't worry, white people, I'll protect you from the scary black man," in stump speeches without sounding completely like a racist. Now, technically, states' rights in American political discourse tends to be a colleges for snobs way to talk about federalism. Basically, its proponents argue that the individual states should have as much autonomous power as possible over how to run things within their borders. As such, it maintains popularity as an ideal among libertarians, isolationists, and other folks who sincerely believe that any government will automatically transform into the Dark Empire once it reaches a certain size. The thing is, once upon a time, autonomy among the states was a pretty good idea. America was a big country, and since for a long time, both before and after it was founded, it took a long-ass time to walk or wagon or donkey or whatever your way from one place to another, each state really did have to look out for itself. A state pretty much needed its own individual self-sustaining food, water, energy, and economic resources, and since it took forever to communicate as well, it was a better idea for the local, on-the-ground powers in each state to manage those resources rather than a faraway federal government that couldn't possibly understand every state's unique individual issues. In this scenario, states' rights absolutism made a certain amount of sense, even to the extent of some things being legal in some states and crimes in another. Here's the problem. The world has changed since then. Crossing from state to state is no longer this arduous journey from one wholly different land to another. You can just fucking drive there. Hell, you can take a train across multiple states in a matter of hours, and that's been true for over a century. And today, for not even that much money, relatively speaking, I can cross the whole damn thing back and forth on a plane in a day. Even without physical travel, thanks to the internet and telecommunications, commerce, the engine that drives what's left of this country, happens at the speed of light across dozens of states and hundreds of countries all at once. The world is connected and unified to an unprecedented degree in the 21st century, and it's only getting more so. And in such a world, the idea that every individual state gets to operate a little autonomous fiefdom in the middle of its arbitrarily drawn borders, that's ridiculous. For example, yes, that means we need a national education system with national standards for what is and isn't getting taught. It is no longer okay for you to decide to fill your state's children's heads with ignorant, factually incorrect bullshit because it's very likely they will not be staying inside your one dumbfuck territory for their whole lives, and you do not have the right to inflict your self-created stupidity on the rest of the country, planet, whatever. Yes, that means we need a single, unified, federally enforced environmental standard, even if it means your precious local industry takes a hit because the pollution you create isn't going to stay within your borders. It's air. It goes everywhere. That's what air does. In addition, states' rights doesn't even make sense in a free market context anymore. Part of the reason it used to work and used to be right is that each state had to be more or less self-sustaining, and as such, the federal government didn't really have any right to tell it how to manage its own resources. Once again, things change. In today's America, not every state has the resources, economic, natural, or otherwise, to sustain itself. And I'm not talking just about welfare. Welfare and entitlements are a tiny piece of this. I'm talking about maintenance, infrastructure, business subsidies, agriculture subsidies, all that shit. There are a lot of individual states that would cease to exist if the federal government stopped helping them. Do I need to spell this part out? Hey, geniuses, you do not get autonomy if you aren't autonomous. If you need someone else to maintain your existence, that someone else gets to set some terms. Incidentally, those dependent states, mostly they tend to be red states. Surprising absolutely no one, the more heavily industrial, globally positioned blue states pay the bills for the heartland to keep on living in a bygone fantasy land where the heartland still matters. How's that for irony? The very places where leave me alone states' rights autonomy tends to be most heavily demanded would fade into oblivion if they actually got their way. Look, the fetishism for states' rights and American politics is basically a form of nostalgia, a yearning to not let go of a simpler, idealized memory of a time that has come and gone if it ever existed at all. Now, nostalgia can be cute and harmless when it comes to things that ultimately don't matter, or at least only matter to you. Keeping old toys around, watching old movies, yeah, I get that. But applying it to the operations of running a country is cultural suicide. Having 50 individual little mini countries made logical sense at one point and then was kinda quaint and quirky for a while after that, but in the modern world, it just doesn't work anymore. A single, unifying, federally mandated standard for important things like commerce, education, law, health, etc., is the only system of management that is practical in a world that's only going to get more connected and more globalized as time goes on, whether you like it or not. Once upon a time, that might have been a liberal or progressive idea. Now it's simply a fact. Things change.